Okay. Hello, hello, and welcome. Let's see if I can find the YouTube broadcast so that I can talk to you and see you. Ah, there we go. Hey, Taryn, how are you? Welcome. Hey, Eddie, great to have you here. Awesome. Welcome in, everybody. Hey, Yin to the Yang, SG. So lovely to be here with you guys. Hey, Dina and Nasima. Heather, Tracy, and Missy, welcome. Awesome to be here. Mystic Rose, Sean from the OZ. So nice to have you guys here. Kylie, welcome. Oki, J Girl, and Al, and Mumu, thank you for being here. Well, I mean, you guys came right on time. I know I was a couple of minutes late, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't dive right into the content before people got here. So now is as good a time as any to begin. I see you guys were ready for this information. How many of you guys are feeling the energetic shifts already taking place as we get closer and closer to January of 2022? How many of you guys are starting to feel some of that pull energy that union windows can create, that pressure energy that they can create? How many of you guys are noticing changes and shifts in your connection? If you're feeling that, I'd love to know changes and shifts in the connection. It doesn't have to be, oh, we came into union. It could be any kind of shift, but something of significance that lets you know, ooh, something is shifting here in the third dimension. Yeah. Yeah. It's all these things. Personal shifts, absolutely. Yeah. It can feel really intense. It can feel very sexual. And I really get that, Dina, like a real fear that you might mess it up or do something wrong. Um, Noticing shifts in counterpart, shifts in yourself. Yeah, fatigue, Kira. Absolutely. Feeling them at night, like in turn up in the degree of joint or mutual healing when the two of you are sleeping. That's a piece here as well. Yeah. Thank you, Crystal. Oh, so glad you're posting about it. Go ahead and place a link here to where people can find more, Crystal, so that people can, because more intel is always going to be better for people because it sharpens our discernment. Good, Samantha. Okay, your person's turning away from addiction. Yeah, you came into divinity union. Good. Yeah, Samantha, those things are normal that kind of suddenly all your fears come up. It's time for them to get purged. But in order for them to get purged, you kind of gotta, it's literally like purging food. You taste it on the way out, and it's very unsavory on the way out. It's not tasty. So you have to feel that fear as it goes out as well. So good. I'm glad you guys are noticing the shifts. You're paying attention to the energy because there is a lot happening right now in the collective energy fields. And there's a lot more that's going to happen. And so today, we're really going to get into what's happening, why it's happening, what to expect, all of that. We're going to talk about, um, the energies and the way they've been playing out. Because what we're moving into is a period of time that will cause a lot of extremes. It's going to pull us toward extreme thinking, extreme emotions, extreme behaviors as a result. And so it's going to be incredibly important to not get carried away on the energy, but instead really learn how to surf the energy, how to be with the energy, how to flow with it, so that in your experiences of it, it is not pushing you or pulling you, but instead you are a channel or a conductor of the energy. And that's a bit of the work that we're going to get into today. Yeah, all the fun times. So let's kind of talk about this. Let me get into, I have some things to show here. Where is my YouTube? Okay, there we go. I'll just share this. I want to go back over to the community page, your channel. There we go. Okay. So here we go. These are the things that I told you guys I was going to talk about today, and I want to make sure that, I stick to that. So you saw this post. We're going to cover the dates for the union window that's coming and what you may experience during this time. We're going to talk about what makes it a union window. We're going to talk about why these periods can really push you guys toward your counterpart or pull you toward your counterpart. We're also going to talk about why these periods of time can be simultaneously quite turbulent, why there can be, even though it's like, oh, I'm pulled toward you, you'd think that would be bliss. And it's not. It's like, wow, all these strong emotions are coming up, these triggers are coming up, and what you can do with that energy. My guides have revealed to me that there are at least 4, there could be more types of union that can occur during these astrological periods of time. And so we are going to look at those 4 and what to expect, what kind of things happen during those periods of time. You'll probably receive a lot of insight and clarity about moments in your connection leading up to now. It'll also give you an idea of what the next union window may be like. And then we'll land on the top 5 blocks to union that are in your control. Actually, there's 4 of them that are in your control. And then there's one of them that's astrological. But what's in your control about that block is that you have the option to flow with it or resist it. And I have found that flowing always creates more ease. Resistance is like banging our head up against the wall, causing ourselves more problems. So this is where we are going today. I expect that we're going to be together for, I'd say, about maybe 90 minutes or so. So if you have to go, it's okay. This is going to remain here on the YouTube channel and it's free. So you can listen at any time you want to reconnect with the information. And we'll take it from there. So before we dive all the way into the conversation today, I do want to start with a couple of caveats. There's a couple things that I want to say about what I'm about to say so that you understand how to frame and listen to what I'm sharing with you. Framing is really important. It's everything, because framing information gives us a way to understand what we're hearing without, and some context for it. And it's important to me that you have a little bit of context for what we're about to get into, right? So first things first, when it comes to whether or not you're in a twin connection, dealing with a soulmate, you have an ascension partner, or even if you call that soulmate a karmic soulmate, all of these experiences can present in very twin like ways. You can have a lot of twin like experiences with people who aren't actually your twin. Okay. And my guidance has been to leave the labeling to you and your guidance team. You take it into consideration and discernment with your spiritual guidance team, and you let them walk you through what's true for you. because it's not my place to be the outsourced resource for your intuition, because part of the journey is returning home. It's coming back to our own divinity, coming back to our own intuition. And so, because of that, it's important that you take the time, and this may take years, it certainly took me years, to know for sure for yourself what you're dealing with. Now, I say all of that to say that in a union window, could the energies present in such a way for a non twin to feel like, oh, maybe this is a thing with my karmic, right? Like, oh, my karmic soulmate or my soulmate, like, okay, now I'm coming into union with this person. Rather, yes and no. Okay, so one of the ways in your discernment you can start to know is by paying attention to the astrological energy and what you're literally feeling on the inside. If the astrological energy is saying one thing, but what's happening in your world and what you're feeling on the inside is proving out something very different, to your own experience be true, to your own intuition be true, and ask yourself, could perhaps this be something other than my twin? Could this be something else? And or, as we're going to talk about momentarily, could this be something other than union? Could there be something else happening here? Okay. So that brings me to the next thing that I'm going to say by way of providing context. We're going to, what I need to tell you is that some of the things I'm going to say today are going to challenge many of you and stretch you as twin souls. And for those of you who are astrologers, it may stretch your knowledge and education as well. Okay. For some of you as twins, this honestly, I'm going to just being transparent. This may be where you and I part ways, because the information that I present may just be too contradictory to your individual guidance for your connection. And you may be in a place in your growth and development where it's imperative that you keep a really pure space for hearing your own intuition, hearing your own guidance without conflicting information. And that's okay. It's totally okay to take a break from intel that is not a match for your connection. Okay. And for others of you, I invite you to listen and take what I'm about to share with you into counsel with your spiritual guidance teams for your own discernment. And here's the deal. I'm just going to reiterate what I've already just said. I never recommend replacing your intuition about your connection with a reader's perspective or intuition. Never let what somebody else tells you about your connection usurp what you have been shown about your connection. I am going to share what I've been shown today by my spiritual guidance team. And I recognize that one of the reasons I've been chosen as a mouthpiece for so many people who are on so many different paths has to do with my ability to hear things that make me extremely uncomfortable, that make me upset and even angry, and still be able to listen without twisting what I'm hearing to make me comfortable again, or demonizing the messenger because I would wish that other things were to be true, especially when what's being revealed to me is in alignment with higher spiritual laws of love and universal law. I have a key, I have like a discernment key in my listening to know when there's alignment there. So I am shown things that I'm like, oh God, are you serious? That can't be right. But sometimes it is. And I am always reminded, look at universal law, look at the spiritual laws of love. Does this align? When it aligns, I know it to be true. So today's conversation is going to be a mix of channeled information and astrological conversation. And astrologically speaking, I also want to acknowledge that twin flame astrology is an emerging field. I have yet to see anyone who reads the planets in the precise way that I do. I read in the way that I was shown by my spiritual guidance team. When I asked for help understanding what exactly was this that's happening between myself and my counterpart, my team showed me where to look in the chart. They said, look at this, now look at that, and what are they doing? And I was like, oh, okay, that explains a lot. And then what they told me, what I was seeing and experiencing, wasn't limited to just me. It was the energy that impacted everyone who incarnated as twin souls. And the more readings I did with people who are twin souls, the more that was proven to be true. And so it took time, but it was like, oh, okay, got it. Now, all of that to say, I'm not an authority on the subject. I'm just one of whom I hope will become many pioneers on this subject. And there will be astrologers, maybe even some of you who are listening, who will take the way I read and expand on it, because you actually are astrological authorities. You've been to school, you've got a degree in astrology, and you're a twin soul as well. And that's wonderful. So if you have instruction or guidance to read in a different way or expand on what I'm sharing, then by all means, start that channel, write that book, share that wisdom in the ways that you're called. There's room for many more voices in this conversation, many more perspectives. The more of us there are, the more we have the chance to finally understand and refine what we're dealing with as explorers on this new frontier. Okay. All right. So all of that said, let's get on into today's content. We're going to start with some astro stuff and the union window dates. So let me just pull this chart out and expand it. And then I'm going to share screen so that you guys can see it. New share. Not that one, this one. Okay, here we go. Thank you guys. I love that you guys are like, nobody reads like you. You're right. Thanks for that. Hopefully it's helpful to you. Shell says, yeah, you've been right every reading. Thanks, Shell. All right, so let's dig into it. Here we go. Here is the peak union window date that we will come into in 2023. Okay. And so a union window is a period of time when the divine counterparts in the sky, and I'll show you who they are in a minute, are going to rest in harmonious positions to one another, creating flow, support, and ease. Okay. Now, I read the divine counterparts. You can see them down here sitting together, Juno and Jupiter. Jupiter is this red one. Okay, Jupiter looks like a 4 with a little hook. The divine masculine in ancient astrology, pre-Roman, Jupiter was known as Zeus. Okay, in Greek astrology or Greek mythology. And then right next to Jupiter, we see here Juno. And Juno is sitting right here. And she is shaped like a cross with a little asterisk on top. Okay. A cross with a light. All right. Juno is known in the mythology. In Greek mythology, she is Hera, but in Roman mythology, which modern Western astrology is based on, she's known as Juno. She's known as Jupiter's wife. Okay. And we're going to come back to talking more in depth about who they are and their energy and how their energy works together momentarily. But we're going to, for now, I just want you to be able to recognize them so that you can see them. You can see them both sitting in the first sign of the zodiac here. That's Aries on this day. So January 23rd, 2023. So I'm not into numerology. I know nothing about it, but for those of you who are, I just want to point out the numbers for you. So January is a 1, 23 adds up to 5, and then 2023 adds up to 8. And you put these together. I don't know, 1, 5, 8, 13, 14. Now you're at 5 again. And these two are sitting at the 4th degree of Aries. Okay, in case the degrees are significant, the 4th degree of the first sign. So here we have that 1 and 4 combination again. All right. So let's back up for those of you who like the numbers. I just laid that out for you. Let's get into this. Now, there are several categories of these harmonious periods of time. And so I don't leave you hanging. By the time we're done today, you will have an option to identify these things in your own chart. Because I'm sure, as you've noticed, what's happening in collective energies aren't a one size fits all for every connection. You can have the specifics of how this plays out in your own life by looking at you and your counterpart's chart directly and knowing what to look for in the comparison between collective energy and natal chart energy. Okay. And I'll give you a bridge to that information before we complete today, so you can go into the union window with an accurate astrological understanding of your situation and what to expect. Now, out of all the harmonious aspects the planets Juno and Jupiter can make with one another, the one that's coming up next year is the most harmonious. As you see them sitting together, this is the most influential two planetary bodies can be on one another, and it's called the conjunction. When they sit together, we call the two planets conjunct. Okay. When they sit together, their energy is most influential one to the other. Okay. And so this makes the energetic pull for those who embody in divine masculine and divine feminine energy very palpable for a total of 1 year on either side of the exact meetup. Okay. So like I said, the exact date is January 23rd of 2023. And for my astrological friends who are really into it like me, let's go over to a 1/23/2022 when the period of time opens. So when this period of time opens, you'll see that here she is at the tail end of Capricorn, and here he is at the very beginning of Pisces, and this is January of 2023. All right. This energy will also be able to be felt. And you see there's all this energy in between them. So we can consider this energy not necessarily blocks, but lessons, things to work on, work with, work through. Okay. Now, this energy also extends past the main date, 2023. It extends into 2024. So here we are in January of 2024. And now we see them flowing out of harmonious position with one another, although both of them are still in earth signs, and we would say that that's harmonious, but they have moved past the conjunction, right? So here's the conjunction. It happened in Aries, and then she moved on, and he moved on. They both moved into Taurus together, but she continued. She went out here through Gemini, into Cancer, into Leo, and then she's going to pause and retrograde in the sign of discernment, and that's Virgo. Okay, so that will give this union window just a little bit of extended oomph, extended energy in 2024. specifically because they will be in trining signs to one another, not necessarily trine, but in harmonious signs to one another, both earth signs being the third dimension. And that's part of what makes this particular union window so special, is that we have them meeting up in the first sign of the zodiac at, at the peak of the union window in 2023, starting a new cycle. First sign, new cycle. That's the sign of Aries. And then they move into a harmonious position later in 2024 when both of them are parked in earth signs in the third dimension, bringing that celestial energy to anchor in the third dimension. Okay. The last time that we had this kind of energy between, it may be 7. I didn't say I was very good at math, Christine. But the last time we had this kind of celestial energy, it is 7. I'm not very good at math. I don't know why I'm good at astrology, but not good at math. It just works that way. Here we go. The last time we had this kind of energy was 2015 between the counterparts. Okay. On May 14th. So I'm just going to edit this chart to just bring you guys back into 2015 for those of you who have been in quite long-term connections with your counterpart. I want you to be able to see what that looked like May 14. Okay. And so here they were again in another fire sign. Fire signs do represent our spirituality, connection to spiritual self. Water is emotion, earth is the third dimension, the body, air is mind. So here they are again in fire sign Leo. And that was the last time they came together. Which means that this is energy you would have been able to feel. This is energy you would have been able to feel as early as May 14th, 2014, and as late as May 16th, May 14th, 2016. You would have been able to feel the pull of the energy on either side. But the way the energy works is a bit like a wave. So I just kind of want to take a moment and draw this out if I can. Okay, get rid of this. There we go. Here we go. All right. So here, let's just say in the world of time, let's just say this is a timeline, goes out here. You love how I draw straight lines. I know you do. Thank you so much for your lovely accolades of my artistry. Let's just say here is 2022. Here is 2024. January of 2022, January of 2024. Here would be January of 2023. And so the energy peaks here. It works like a bit of a crescendo, a wave, and then it dissipates here. So it's least strong here and here, but can you still feel it? Absolutely. We're not even in 2022 yet. And a lot of you can already feel the shifts. You can already feel the changes. Okay. So that's the way I want you to understand this, that there's the energy works in a bit of a wave form with most intensity on the exact date. So let's get back to that exact date for those of you who are astrologers. You want to make some notes about that exact date for yourself. Here it is again, January 23rd, 2023. All right. All right. All right. So let's talk about some of the experiences that you may have with your counterpart in the third dimension during this period of time, shall we? You want to get into those experiences? Some of you are already sharing, I see here in the chat. Yeah, I see you guys sharing the different things with what you experienced in other periods of time. Kira said things were so crappy, but we couldn't move away from one another. Yeah, the pull can be really magnetic. And unless you're actively doing the work, because the work does call upon us to decondition, to deal with the ego, to remove our own barriers to love. Unless you're doing the work, things just kind of continually, they can devolve the closer these two get together at times. Okay. Very good. Yeah, Rebecca met her counterpart in 2015. Yeah, a lot of people in longer term connections met in 2015 or in other kind of union or communication windows since then. But that's not a sign that you're a twin. It's just a sign of astrological weather. So I want to make sure to say that there are other people who are definitely twins who have met at other times. That are outside of union windows. And so it's important to just acknowledge and note that, and there's good reason for it. All right. So let's get into the things that you may experience during this period of time. I want to talk through those. All right. So, first thing is you can feel a really incredible pull toward your counterpart, like they're in divine connections, these people can be on your mind all the time, but now, above and beyond being on your mind, they are excessively in your energy and in your emotional field. And physically, you can feel them palpably in your presence, whether they are actually there or not. Some of you are starting to already experience those things, and we haven't even gotten there yet. Okay, in the collective energy. And that can make part of your life in any kind of grounded or consistent way. The energy, if you and counterpart are in separation, no communication, resisting the connection, can actually be really oppressive on both sides for them and for you. The only thing that feels like it can really relieve the extreme pressure of being compelled toward this person is making that phone call, taking that step, being in the connection, honoring the connection. And this isn't, I really want to make the distinction here that this isn't about the codependency or needing another person in order to be okay. It's about accepting that you're in a highly evolved spiritual classroom. This connection is your teacher, not necessarily the person. And that interactions together are the laboratory via which we deepen our understanding of the power of love and the majesty of our divinity incarnate. Iron sharpens iron. And this connection sharpens us through the taming of our egos and breaking us free of our third dimensional conditioning like nothing else, so that ultimately we can become very pure leaders in love for those around us. This is part of why on my channel I was like, hey, if you're a psychotherapist who's also a twin soul who understands this, it would be really good if you could let me know so that I could make a resource list. Because if you tried to explain this to a normal therapist or anyone who's never experienced it, you start explaining, well, I'm getting a lot out of this. I'm learning a lot about love. They'll be like, you're codependent, read Melody Beatty's book. They're not going to understand that what you're moving through is an evolutionary process designed to integrate your capacity in leadership and love. Okay. So there's that part. If you are a psychotherapist, email me so I can add you to the list, who's also a twin soul. Okay. Another thing you may experience during union windows in general is that you may find that serendipitous events, especially union windows of the conjunction type, almost force you and counterpart together, finding yourself in the same city, in the same cafe, on the same day, at the same time, when you both live on opposite sides of your country. You wouldn't believe the number of stories I've heard like this in my client sessions when they have been in their own personal union windows, meaning when the astrological energy is aligning with their individual charts in ways that bring them into their own union window. This could also be something like you purposely going out of your way to avoid them. You don't want to deal with it. You're running, you know it, and you're okay with it. But then they cross your path after months or years of silence. Friends of friends that you didn't know knew them, bring them up in conversation or reconnect you guys through work when it seemed like your jobs had nothing to do with each other. I'll never forget my twin and I moved into a period of separation, and it was a hardcore one. It was before we even knew we were twins. But a union window had opened, and we had agreed we just weren't going to speak to one another. Like we had to call it because we were doing nothing good for one another at that point in time. And he knew it. And he was like, yeah, I can't reconnect with you. And so I was in a mentorship program on a whole other business, and I went to go meet a mentor. I knew my mentor was like, I can meet you in the city between these blocks. And I was like, well, that is exactly where my person works. I'm not meeting you there. So I intentionally told my mentor, I was like, I can't meet there, but I can meet here. And I picked a place that would have been okay for her based on where her offices were. And wouldn't you know, I went to go meet her. I sat down inside of the Starbucks, and who walks right past outside of the window? Yeah. These kind of periods of time will facilitate meetups in the third dimension in a way that is like, okay, clearly I need to deal with this. Right? Yeah, we all sound crazy with this kind of thing, Shell. Like this kind of energy makes us all feel a little bit crazy. Um, Inside of a union window like this, it's important to remember that the universe is inviting us to the party. The universe is doing its work. God, Holy Spirit, your spiritual team, whatever you believe in, soul contracts, call it whatever you want. They're doing their part. Universe is calling the DJ, booking the hall, inviting the guests, calling the caterer. But whether or not we show up to the party, that's a matter of free will. Okay. So you may have been out of communication for years, and suddenly out of the blue, they find you, they look you up, or you get the urge to just reach out to break the silence. You may meet people who have their name, their looks, their voice, their build, their body type. And other things that may occur inside of a union window like this is what's interesting is you may go from no communication to a super solid friendship that has more viability because of its depth of vulnerability, depth of transparency, um, depth of communication in the friendship. And this could actually be more than what you may have had in a previous romantic relationship. You may realize in the friendship, you guys go deeper and have each other's back in a way that in romantic connection, you were just too triggered to be able to do. And so, it preceding a union window, I just had a client tell me this the other day. She was like, my counterpart got married to somebody else. He's married to her, But since their marriage, he has been more open, more honest, more vulnerable with me than he's ever been in the entire time I've known him. I said, well, welcome to union energy. Union energy doesn't necessarily require third dimensional metrics of togetherness to express its true nature. It doesn't require those things at all. So expect some of that might happen for some of you too, that you could be moved into what you think in your conscious mind is some format of separation, only to discover that it was the exact precursor that was required for a union energy to start to anchor. Okay. So, and I can't leave this out. It also makes sense for some of you who are both ready for and have chosen a third dimensional world, traditional romantic union. This is also possible. Some of you may come together, move in together, have a relationship. Some of you may get married, that sort of thing. Some of you may decide, I've had clients come to me and say, my spouse knows about my twin and we've talked about it, and my spouse is in awe of the love and the way that it's changed me, and my spouse doesn't want to leave the marriage and is open to us having an open marriage, and so we are now working on creating a throuple. Hey, it's not for me to judge. Love does what it wants to do. All I'm just here as a messenger. So if that's you, just know that that's a part of the way this energy can work too. All right. Okay, let's get into what I want to say in conclusion of this section is that everyone who is a twin soul will come to understand what's in the way of a step forward and what the work is during a union window. Union windows leave zero room for confusion about why, or let me put it a different way, about what your blocks to love and being loving are. They illuminate them, they highlight them, they show you the triggers, they show you where the work is. And so those who are masterful have already been paying attention to this energy, and they've been working with the energy long before the union window. You may work on it during the union window, but the union window will shine a bright light on it, because that magnetic pull to experience divine love and become and do whatever it takes to experience divine love illuminates and highlights where you yourself are blocking it, so that you can get in there and do the work and heal those things. Okay. And these are just the things that can happen in one of the 4 types of union. And I did promise that we would cover the 4 types of union. These are just the things that can happen in the world of something, the third dimension, traditional kind of union. But there are other kinds of union. There are 3 other types, which we'll talk about in a moment. But before we get there, I really want to cover why these periods of time can be just so turbulent. Like, what is up with that? Why is this? Why does it feel like this is a bit of a hot mess? Like, why is it, all over the show? Why is it so hard? I want to talk about that for a moment. Okay. Oops, meant to go forward in my slide deck. It's not going to let me do that. How do I do this? Let me try this again. Here we go. That's who we want to see. We want to see our good friends there, Jupiter and Juno. Here they are, the divine counterparts in a nice piece of Italian art. I talk about this piece in Star School 201 and give a little bit of history about the piece and some of the symbology that's seen here in the image in Star School 201. Because interestingly enough, during the Renaissance period in Italy, a lot of the artists were heavily into checking out the all of these energies and talking through, like, like, okay, well, what is this and who are these people, and revealing the images. They love to paint imagery and then place symbology in the imagery that provided additional insight into divinity, into what we understood to be the energies between divine counterparts. Hang on one second. I lost my place in my notes. I just want to bring those back up so that I can be of good service in this part of the conversation. Okay. There we go. All right. Cool. All right. So here's the deal with Juno and Jupiter, right? They have this energy between them that can be turbulent. And there's a lot of reasons for that in the mythology that the astrology is based on. These two, even though married, even though, committed and together, when you look at the mythology, what you discover is that the two of them are, they're actually brother and sister. They, and this, I don't bring this up to say brothers and sisters and siblings fight, or, incestuousness is what this is all about. That's not it. What I'm saying is that it's important to understand that when you look at why they are the way they are with one another. These two were literally cut from the exact same cloth, the same spiritual DNA. They are mirrors for one another in a lot of ways. And this is, earlier this year, I covered the different types of divine mirrors. So you may want to go back and have a listen to that. If you're like, oh, me and my counterpart, we're not mirrors at all. These two could be, it could be stated that they're not mirrors either, given their behaviors. However, when you look more deeply at the way divine mirrors work, you can start to see some of their mirroring patterns. So in the mythology, at first, Juno wanted nothing to do with Jupiter. She had rebuffed his proposals, I would say probably about 3 times before she said yes. And when she finally said yes and they got married, they had like this wonderful honeymoon period that lasted, I can't remember, it was like 200 or 400 years. They went kind of under the ocean. It was blissful. They were hanging out in Neptune's kingdom, doing blissful kind of stuff. And then they went back to Mount Olympus and they dealt with the material realm and the third dimension. And wouldn't you know, interferences came up, triggers came up, old behaviors came up, their shadows came up. Now, Jupiter in shadow had a lot of problems with the energy of wanting to spread it around, share the love. He liked to, let's just say, spread the seed far and wide, which is, we say that that is the biological imperative of men, to want to share the seed with many. We see in the mythology Jupiter spending a lot of quality sexual time with people who are not Juno, getting them pregnant, like having these children. Some of them are half god because he's a god and half human because he'd fall in love with the humans and be like, oh, I must mate with you. Lust was Jupiter's problem, Jupiter's shadow. But Juno, she was no saint. She had her own shadow and her own issues to deal with. Juno was jealous and codependent and needy, and she would do anything in her power to kind of thwart Jupiter's, and she was vengeful too. She wanted to thwart Jupiter's liaisons with these sometimes other goddesses, um, sometimes mortal women. And so Juno, in her efforts to kind of do this, sometimes she took it to extremes. Her shadow would get her to a place of forgetting and losing herself and self-erasure. Now, if you recognize in this a little bit of a runner-chaser dynamic, let me know there in the chat. Does this not sound twin soul-like? There's, Jupiter over here kind of resisting being connected directly and consistently with Juno. There's Juno over here resisting being directly connected with herself and her divinity. But then the two of them just can't quit each other. And when Juno decides she's going to go out and she's going to have her own little tryst, it's like Jupiter feels a disturbance in the force. And there's a whole story about how he then decides to come along and put a wrench in the works when she's like, fine, you want to have some others on the side? I will too. And here he comes to thwart it. And so this is the astrological legacy. Commitment at all costs, pulled, drawn together, bound together. In the light, what we have is Jupiter and Juno providing a lot of guidance and divine instruction for the other gods on Mount Olympus and for the humans on Earth. We have both of them as major protectors of the greater good for humanity in their development and in their consciousness. We have Jupiter really providing law and divine law and helping people and gods understand what is in right order and the way they need to be interacting with each other to respect one another's sovereignty. Juno providing access to fertility and growth and abundance for the people and the gods, Mount Olympus, the gods of Mount Olympus and the people that she oversaw. The two of them brought so much light wherever they went. And part of having that light was working through their own individual triggers. So that's the mythology. That's the inheritance of divine masculine, divine feminine. All right. And as divinity incarnate in the flesh form, that's us as twin souls in the human body. As divinity incarnate, what we have going on is an imperative, an invitation to transmute and transcend that legacy. As we are made in the image of the divine, many ancient texts talk about this. We have the opportunity with our free will to not be puppeteered by that legacy and to write a new story, to live a new legacy. And thus that brings us to where we are now and the work that needs to get done. Okay. Because their commitment level was what it was, they stayed, even though they were kind of crazy with one another. They certainly stayed together and the growth continued. And so we can pull from and lift from the energetic mythology here for what serves us and transmute that which needs to be rewritten. And this is in part why it can be so turbulent when counterparts come together, because when they come together, so too does all the triggers. So too does all of the challenges. So too does the shadow. These two brought their shadow up for resolution out of one another like nobody else could do for the two of them. And that's the invitation here. Okay, the other reason why this can be so turbulent, aside from just the mythological reasons alone, the legacy alone, is that in general, there can just be a lot of resistance to the pull of the energy, like just feeling the pull and just demanding that you will not respond. I do not consent. I choose to ignore this. I will shut it down at any cost. But what that also ends up doing is cutting off a part of self. And when we cut off parts of self go dead, go offline, go numb, we are missing participating in the greater reasons why we have incarnated here, what we've come to serve, and the growth that needs to happen before we can step into that service. And then the third reason why it can be so turbulent is because we just don't understand and we're trying to figure it all out alone. Part of not understanding is confusing and conflating the types of union. So I want to get into the 4 types of union that can occur during a union window, so that you understand what you're working with. I'm going to talk about those now. Okay, so get your notes together. And if you've experienced one, put it in the chat, put it in the comments for me. I'd be really curious. Of the 4 types that my guides have revealed to me, that doesn't mean they're the only 4, but they're certainly the 4 that have been illuminated to me as distinct and separate experiences, discrete experiences. I'm curious which ones you have experienced, okay? Like I was saying, there is sometimes when we're trying to figure it out alone and we don't really understand what's going on, we can confuse the different types, especially when the human consciousness level really only understands one type. Must be together, must be together, must be a couple, must have sex, must procreate. We can feel like the entire process is a bit of a cruel joke because we're expecting something that's just not in alignment to be provided at this time. And astrologically, you can use the end, you can start to look astrologically and see, oh, okay, it's actually time for this, not that. And like I said, before we close out today, I'll give you a way to understand this. So we've already covered the first and most commonly understood type of union, some shape or form of movement toward togetherness in the 3rd dimension with counterpart. However, as twin souls, we have a divine purpose, okay, that expands beyond muggle life of growing up, going to school, getting married, having 2.5 kids, a dog, and living a quiet suburban life. As you may have noticed, we are living in extraordinary times. The decades of expansion and development at any cost post the Second World War have had a staggering impact on Earth's resources, the environment, the consequential costs of some of Earth's peoples who are being disenfranchised and subjugated so that other groups are able to live in excess. This is out of balance. And it has led to extraordinary development. This development post the Second World War, we've had extraordinary development of humanity in some places and extraordinary destruction in other places. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary leadership. And in the years since the late 90s, there have been conversations about new types of beings arriving here on Earth to assist humanity in their development and consciousness. Indigo and crystal children, light workers, and among this group, twin souls, star seeds of varying origins, etc., all working to assist humanity toward maintaining greater levels of consciousness at which greater quotients of light can be held and conducted. I mean, can I get an amen in the chat if you can see humanity needs help? We need help badly at this time. In that group known as light workers, the subgroup twin souls are here to assist humanity with anchoring divine love. Okay. And in this way, we offer humanity through our leadership a transmission of what sovereignty looks like when it doesn't rely on putting down or subjugating or enslaving other people or abusing Earth's resources. When we are anchored in divine love, we have the capacity to think through and show humans there's another way, and that our own power isn't dependent on somebody else giving up theirs. In other words, once we're anchored in divine love, which is what the twin connection gives us, when we're anchored in divine love, we have the ability to turn humanity toward more harmonious ways of living and interacting with each other, with the earth, and ultimately with other beings in our solar system and in our galaxy. And in the world of union initiations, the pull to be with counterpart at all costs is just, it's like a signal. It is it's the bait on the hook, so to speak. It's one of the ways that the separation conditioning of the ego is disintegrated, obliterated, and smashed. Because as a root energy, this must be with counterpart, must be with counterpart, counterparts in my energy, I can't breathe. This whole thing as a root energy calls in divine love through a willingness to become whatever it takes, heal whatever it takes, release whatever it takes, forgive whatever it takes to experience divine love. In other words, it begins the quest to become whole again, to remember our oneness. And this is the work. Okay. Now, the second type of union available, let me just make sure I have this right on my notes. There we go. So that was the first type of union, and that's some form of union in the third dimension, and its job is about catalyzing us to be anchors of divine love. Okay. Now, let me go ahead and move back to my, I want to go back to my waves because my waves make me feel calm. There we go. And now I can also see you guys here in the chat. Yes, so you guys get it. You guys know humanity needs some help right now. Let's get it. All right. Let's talk about the second type of union energy that's available. And this is union with self and with the higher self. Okay. Union with self, union with the higher self. I would say this is also union with the divine. In this type of union, significant amounts of past and concurrent life integrations and healings can occur. So past life and simultaneous timelines, those kinds of things, where abilities and gifts. So some of you in past lives, you were healers and your healership is coming back online again. Okay, those kinds of things. Where past life or concurrent life abilities and gifts, wisdom and perspectives from alternate timelines integrate into this timeline where your conscious mind is receiving this message. Now, this type of union also surfaces a lot of old material from the subconscious mind for integration and healing so that we can experience a more integrated selfhood where we are not at war with our soul's callings, but instead congruent and active advocates for our soul's expression. Okay. So first type of union, something happening in the third dimension with twin, anchors divine love. Second type of union, union with self and our own divinity. That one there makes us whole. brings us back into oneness. Let's talk about the third type of union. Okay. Are you guys tracking what I'm saying? Have you guys experienced the second type of union, union with self, union with your divinity? Does this make sense to you guys? Yeah, LSR got it. Yeah, it makes sense. The twin flame thing drives the healing. That's exactly it. All right. Let's talk about the third type of union. And some of you have experienced this. You have to let me know if you've got this part. This part is called union with the soul group. Okay. For some, this may be the soul family, starseed family. Others may refer to this as the monad. Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Cool. You guys are getting it. Thank you for letting me know in the chat. I really appreciate that. I'm like, am I crazy? Are these people getting it? Are they even listening? Thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that. Okay. So this particular type of union, this third type, union with the soul group, this one and the next one that I'm going to talk about are extraordinarily significant because without these two, we aren't able to give and learn what we came here to give and learn in the earth realms. Now, this type of union is where we receive significant heart activations that expand our energetic presence through a group of people here on earth that are both our teachers and our students. These are those who will guide us and those we are here to guide. Soul group union breaks down and dissolves the energetic consciousness's idea of selfhood. And it was interesting when they told me energetic consciousness, like, what do you mean? And when they explained it, they said, you guys think your consciousness, you can point to it by pointing at your brain. But every single construct in your brain rests in your entire energetic field as a frequency and a vibration. So everything that you have in your brain as a block to love, block to your divinity being incarnate, a block to your own selfhood, everything that's hanging out in there is also hanging out in your entire energetic field. And it's preventing you from being one with all that is. Okay, that's how they explained it to me. And so when we get into union with the soul group, all of those blocks start to break down and dissolve. And two things occur as that's happening. Our barriers between us and the soul group dissolve. So we become a purgative node. God, you guys need simpler language. I love how they like to give me this complex language. In other words, many of you recognize this as purging on behalf of other people. When you recognize the experiences that you're purging, the pain that you are experiencing supersedes anything that you are actually experiencing in the third dimension, present or past time in this lifetime. Meaning, you have no trauma associated to why you're purging from this lifetime or the current experiences, but you are purging nonetheless. This is part of what happens as you move into union with your soul group. You guys are growing together. You are releasing all of those energies through you, and they too are taking on and releasing your energies through them as well. Okay. Yes, Brenda, limiting beliefs. Thank you. That is a perfect way to put it. Okay. This particular type of union breaks down and dissolves a lot of those limiting beliefs and the energetic consciousness idea of a selfhood and individuation. And this is where, like I said, we begin to experience those clearing of group blocks. So as people in our soul group step forward and take a step, so too do we, and vice versa. As they take a step, things are unlocked and released for us. We get to take a step too. It's very similar to the way in which we understand there was before anyone had ever run a 4-minute mile. In human consciousness, we thought it was impossible to run a full mile in 4 minutes straight, and solely 4 minutes. But after the first person did it, it unlocked in the consciousness that it could be done by all those in the soul group who were ready to achieve that. And now that's not even the fastest mile that can be ran. Okay. Clearing out and dissolving those constructs of separation allow us to merge and be in union with the soul group. And this makes us more powerful. We are more powerful together. And so this is the third type of union. I'll just state it again. This type of union is called union with the self, the higher self. Or it's union with the soul group. The second type was union with the self and this higher self, your own divinity. The third type is union with the soul group. Okay. So if you guys have had that union with the soul group thing, put that in the chat. I'd love to know if you've experienced that. Okay. Now, the fourth type and final type that's been revealed to me so far is union with mission, union with the third pole in our connection and with counterpart, as above, so below. Now, the mission energy piece of this is pretty self-explanatory. It's the merge with what the soul is called to do. It's full surrender to it and a willingness to do it without resistance anymore. Okay. In this type of union, the vision becomes really clear and the means by which to execute it begin to become available in the third dimension. This type of union is really marked by growth and expansion in responsibility and resources in the earth realms. It's basically a spiritual promotion, if you will. Okay. And the spiritual promotion, yes, it requires training, it requires work, it requires lifestyle changes. For some, but not all, this can include a career change. Okay, had to cough, excuse me. And all of that is supporting you to manage and mitigate the energies you're working with in the community you're deployed to work within. So just consider that, your boots on the ground, your troops on the ground. There are people you're assigned to work with and help. And when you have just submitted to okay, I'm deployed on this mission, I got to just do this work, the training comes forward. The right partners and people come forward. The resources, the money you need starts to come forward. Where you need to go in order to make it work in the third dimension presents itself. All of these things begin to show up. Okay. Now, the concept of the third pole, I want to show another image. Let's go back to our friends there. You talk about the concept of the third pole. Have you guys heard of this concept called the third pole before? Is this new to you? This idea called a third pole. Let me know in the chat if you've heard of it. But the concept of the third pole was brought to us by Jennifer and Brian Franklin in their relationship mastery work. Now, these are two coaches who work out in San Francisco, but they live out in San Francisco, but they work globally. And Morgan referenced the concept in her interview last year as well. And this is an image of Brian and Jennifer that was created by the artist Android Jones on their wedding day. When they came into union, they had a very, wedding of their own reflection of their own image, very unique wedding. They had this artist come and said, just paint something for us. And, on the left there, you see Brian. On the right there, you see Jennifer. And this was back in 2013. And Android called the work union. And so the two of them together had been doing relationship coaching work for a lot of people prior to coming into union themselves. And they had other work that they were doing separately. Jennifer in the world of environmental protection, and Brian in the world of business development and leadership development and consciousness. And then they came together and it was like fireworks. The two of them are pretty amazing. And so Morgan kind of referenced this idea of a third pole in her interview last year as well. And I go more in depth in Star School 201 on the teaching Brian Jennifer provided, but I'm going to shorthand you guys here, give you guys the cliff notes. In any commitment to another that is designed to have meaning and make an impact, there must be a superseding commitment to a third pole that forces both parties to grow, become even more powerful versions of themselves. Now, Morgan spoke of it when she described in her soul work that there were times when she was asked by her spiritual team repeatedly if she was more committed to the work or more committed to being with her counterpart, Todd. And every time she always chose the work. And as she expanded in the work, Todd expanded in his work, and their connection deepened every single time. But it was a direct result of their individual sovereignty and putting the mission and the commitment above the commitment to one another and the connection, not letting the mission die so that the connection could live, not sacrificing the mission for the connection, but being willing to sacrifice the connection instead so that the mission could live. Okay, that's the idea here we're going after with this third pole union with mission idea. When you're identifying what your own third pole is, in union, you can create that with your counterpart. The two of you can kind of discuss it. And Brian and Jennifer in their work, they walk through a process for how to identify that between two people. But you don't have to be in some sort of third dimensional union with your person to be clear about your commitment and what that is. It's all you're looking for is what the connection has inspired in you, that you're committed to being and giving regardless of what's going on in the connection at any given time. So this type of union, mission with the third pole, mission, or union with the mission, union with the third pole, it's really critical for us being the fullest expression of what a twin soul is and doing what we came here as twin souls to do. Now, let's just recap. For those of you who are joining late, I was just reviewing the types of union, the 4 types of union. I'm going to recap those now. Okay. That first type is, what we all understand union to be. It's union with the counterpart in some way, but it doesn't always look like a marriage. It can look like so many different things. You want to go back and listen to that. Union with the self or the divine, and spiritual union occurs under union with the counterpart. It's a piece of that. Union with the self or the divine. The third type is union with the soul family, soul group, monad, whatever you want to call it. And then the final type that my guides have revealed to me thus far is union with the mission. Okay. All right. So just out of curiosity, have you guys experienced any of these other types of union? If you could put it in the chat, I'd be really curious. One thing I want to make sure I mention about this is that they can happen in any order. They are not stages. They are not steps. They are not sequential. And they may, as I mentioned, they may not even be the only types of union. As I said, I'm sharing what's been revealed to me, but you have your own guidance system, and together we're really explorers in a new field, on a new frontier. Highest possible outcomes present when we are non-resistant to what's happening, and we're able to trust that whatever is happening, even if we would prefer it to be otherwise, is in accordance with that highest possible outcome, or will get use to facilitate that highest possible outcome. And this is mastery level ability and aligning our free will with the fated energy and what it's calling for. Look, none of this is easy. None of it is easy. I'm going to be honest, I'm not here. I don't have it. They told me what this is, and I'm like, yeah, okay. They're like, yeah, we'll work with you. Don't worry, Kay. I'm like, thanks. Because I am not, I wish I could say I was this surrendered. I have the capacity to hear and understand it, but I am actively being worked on with my guidance team in terms of living it. And I'll just be honest about that. It's an ongoing process. So, as mentioned on previous recordings, things like a separation from a counterpart may actually be in our highest good at times. It's hard to accept that this may be the case, but nevertheless, this is what union energy asks us to do. It asks us to be at one with whatever is unfolding. It asks us to let go of resistance to however it's transpiring. And it asks that we understand that sometimes there isn't an amount of work we can do. There isn't an amount of healing we can get or clearing in the Akashic records or SRT that we can do that will force or facilitate an outcome in a specific direction. There just isn't, especially when sometimes separation is due to needing to fulfill soul agreements with other people, facilitate aspects of the mission with other souls and other countries, or when it just might be safer for both twins as they aren't in the same location, safe from psychic attack energy to keep them separate, safe from emotional disturbance energy to keep them separate if they're both struggling with their own growth. The thing that my guides really want you to remember before we talk about the blocks to union energy that are in your control and what you can do about them is that union energy is never lost. It is never wasted. It is always actively offering growth and communion with an aspect of our divinity. It's always working for us, not against us. But participation in that energy, that's entirely up to us. Okay. Now, let us talk about the top 5 blocks to union that are in your control. And the 5th one, that's specifically astrological, there are things you can do to even work with that so that you're ready when union windows open for the highest possible outcome, whatever that outcome may be. I want you guys to be fully ready for that. Okay. So the first, where is this in this note? Okay. So some of you, I'm going to be honest here, like I said, some of y'all going to feel real called out, but that's just, hey, that's where we're at. The first block to union that I have seen, and hey, this has been a block in my world as well, so I'm not sharing anything that I haven't experienced, is staying with a soulmate, a karmic partner, a karmic job, or in a karmic location long past its expiration date. So this particular block to union has to do with a fear of change and an unwillingness to change. It's a resistance to what the energy is calling us to do because we're more comfortable where we're at. Okay, that is the, you can do something about that. And the solution that's in your hands, if you're blocking union energy in this way by staying in a place, yeah, exactly, Kira, trigger warning. If you're in this place where it is too terrifying to change, despite how uncomfortable the current circumstance is, you may hate your job. You may hate that house you live in. You may really, the love may be all the way gone. You may be in a full-on friendship with no sex with that spouse, right? This kind of thing, you can get support to change it. That's the solution here. It's finding a coach, finding a mentor, finding a psychotherapist who is skilled at managing change and transition and walking you through the steps of change and holding the emotional container for you while you make the changes. The solution is to not do it alone, it's to get support. Okay, so that's the first block to union, totally in your control. But if you know that this is the issue and you've not done anything about it, and we're getting so close to this union window opening, and you know that left to your own devices, your track record has proven you're not going to do anything about it. The truth is always in our track record. To change that track record, get support, get a mentor, get someone to help you. All right. Now, let's talk about the second block to union. Okay. The second block to union energy, and this is any of the 4 types of union that I have described, that my guides kind of laid out there, is expecting that the journey be fair, balanced, equal, and even according to you and your level of consciousness and awareness at this time. This is the operation of the connection in pride and blame. Well, I'm the one who always reaches out. Well, I'm the one who's always made the effort. They don't do anything. They don't reach out. They don't stand for the connection. They, me, separation, not us, not we. They did this, but I did that. Pride and blame will keep recycling separation energy every time. And the reasons we do that is because we can get anchored in our consciousness to what we can see in the 3rd dimension. I'll never forget it when Dove said in her interview, when I interviewed Dove and Nicole on this channel, their union interview, Twins in Union interview, she said, you know, when I really got into the past life work and I saw the number of times Nicole has fallen on her sword for me, the number of times Nicole has taken a bullet for me, has sacrificed something for me so that I could be happy, so that I could live, so that I didn't have to suffer, so that I could be comfortable, so that, you know, I could expand. When I really saw that, it became a no-brainer for me to get that next healing, to do that next piece of work, to dig deeper into my own healing and growth. She said, you know, it's my conscious awareness wants to be tit for tat. I don't think she said this, but the conscious mind wants to look at just this lifetime and go, well, you haven't done enough, so I'm not going to do anything. You have to reach out to me. And if you've got wounding on top of that, abandonment wounding, unhealed stuff with your family and your parental dynamic, then on top of that, you're going to build walls and say, oh, and on top of that, I'm going to block you so that the only way I know for sure you love me is if you blast through the walls that I have built. Don't we play these games? When the reality is that we are beings expanded and experiencing things so far beyond what we have the conscious capacity to understand and hold in just this lifetime. And if you are called and compelled to do the healing, to reach out, to stand in availability, to be in presence, you got to put the ego down, because you cannot hold on to pride and blame and still be in connection. You cannot hold those two and hold connection at the same time. It does not work. So that's the second block. And if you're struggling there, the solution again is to get support around compassion to yourself for the reasons why you're holding that. There might be something in there that you, from past life or this life, trauma in this lifetime, you could do some healing work around. So that you're not holding on to those things. so that you're not building walls and holding expectations that are unrealistic, or, keeping score, when it's like, yeah, the score in this lifetime says you've done more, but when you put all the lifetimes together, you actually have a little catching up to do. You have some makeup work to do. And there's no way for us to truly and consciously know that. And so the guidance system of the heart pull is what shows us, okay, it's time. I got to step into some work. The heart is just telling me where to look and that I need to keep looking to do the work. Okay. So again, this it takes a higher level of understanding and awareness to get this. Not every coach or every psychotherapist is really going to understand why you feel so compelled via your twin connection to do this work. So below this video, I've reached out to a number of psychotherapists have reached out to me who are also twin souls. I've just put their names and what they had to say about themselves in a Google document. For those of you who are like, yeah, I need a coach, I need a therapist, I need someone to walk me through this because I have been repeating my own patterns, making my own blocks in my connection. I'm going to link them. I'm going to link that document just below this video in the description box, so that if you know this is you, you can get up off it. Like, don't keep carrying this. Don't carry that into 2022. Get support from someone who's trained and skilled to help hold the container for you so that you can make the necessary changes. Okay. And for those psychotherapists who gave me their information, who reached out via email, thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. You're going to help a lot of people. I know it. Okay, the third block. So we talked about that first block, staying in a karmic pattern with a soulmate, a job, a living situation, behavioral patterns long past their expiration date. The second one is recycling concepts of pride and blame. That it's you against them, that they have to prove something to you to be worthy of your love. That will always create blocks. The third block that's totally in your control, that you can do something about, is letting past trauma prevent action in the present. So projecting the past onto the future, projecting the past onto the present, not healing and expecting repeating patterns, and then creating self-fulfilling prophecies around connection. So you've had 4 relationships that never really worked. You think you're garbage for relationships, and therefore you are going to fall on your sword and take yourself out of your twin's life because you're so garbage. They must think you're garbage. And then you sabotage the connection because of past trauma over and over and over again. And then to add insult to injury, or to make that even worse, you sabotage it over and over again, which then does start to make your twin wonder, why is this person behaving this way? Why do they keep sabotaging things? Maybe they are garbage at relationships. You're planting the seed through the behavior of trying to prevent past pain by projecting that pain onto the present. That never works. It never works. We only we create self-fulfilling prophecies that way, by projecting the past onto the present and trying to avoid repetition by assuming the future is going to repeat the past. It doesn't, not when you do the work. And so the solution here on this one is to heal and grieve whatever happened in the past. Healership and healing is specifically healing the energetic properties that you're holding on to, grieving the sadness that the things that didn't work, healing the patterns that created the non-workability, because most likely there's patterns there that created things that didn't serve, and healing those. And then the second part of the solution is learning and reprogramming. So you guys know I'm a big fan of Miss Thais Gibson. I talk about her on the channel all the time. And she's a fantastic resource for reprogramming patterns that you keep repeating. So I'll link her below the video as well. But learning and education, learning new ways of communication, new ways of thinking, new ways of interacting, new behaviors when you're challenged or triggered. That's what breaks through old patterns, not just avoiding the thing altogether, playing all or nothing, projecting the past onto the future, onto the present. Okay. And then the fourth block, so just quickly recap, block 1, staying inside of a situation long past its expiration date. Second block is recycling patterns of pride and blame. Third block that's in your connection is letting past trauma, avoiding past trauma by projecting it onto the present and the future. So recycling trauma patterns. Then the fourth one is applying the wrong solution to the right problem. Okay. This one is one of my favorites. I end up talking about this in my sessions with clients all the time. If you're one of my clients, you already know that I have spoken to you about this probably at some point. This is the equivalent of fixing the sink when the dishwasher is broken. So applying spiritual solutions to communication problems, applying psychological problems when the issue, or applying psychological work and solutions. Like, I've been in therapy for 10 years. I don't know why I would need to do any more spiritual work because it's not working. Like, the issue isn't in the realm of psychology. The issue is in the realm of spirituality, or the issue is in the realm of behavior. The issue is in the realm of communication. Applying the wrong solution to the problem. Okay. That's the fourth block that you can do something about. If you know that you consistently get stuck in a singular place in the third dimension, whether that's communication or negative thinking, or you get stuck, in the world of like maybe depression and battles with mental health, or you consistently get stuck in looping patterns of fear and then self-sabotage in connection, trying to apply like an SRT is not going to fix your trauma pattern. You need to do trauma healing work. If you are being psychically attacked and you've got issues with your grounding and your auric field and your chakra, taking a communication class is not going to help you. If you know you always fight with people and start fights when you're scared to be vulnerable, past life regression work is not going to fix that. You need to apply the right solution to your problem and know where the right solution lives and how to be able to handle it. Okay. So all of that to say that many of you are aware of these things. You've understood these things. You've seen these things. None of this is new for you. You've been doing the work. A lot of you have been doing the work all this time. You're familiar with what I am telling you. So if this is you and you're familiar and you're asking yourself, what if I'm doing it all and still nothing is moving? I've been doing it all for a couple of years, for 5 years, for 7 years, and still nothing is moving correctly in my connection. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. When that's the case, what might actually be happening, and this brings us to the fifth block, when there's a need to shift perspective is what I'm oh gosh, might be in my brain today. There's a need to shift perspective if that's the case. If you are in the place where you are like, I'm doing it all and nothing's working, then the only thing left to do is to ask yourself, okay, what if nothing is wrong here? What if this is unfolding exactly the way it should be? What if there's a divine design to all of this? That if you just understood the pathway, if you just understood, the kind of the sequencing and pacing of events, you could stop blaming yourself, you could stop blaming them, and you could be at peace and continue to do your work until the right time unfolds. And this is that fate and free will thing. There is a sequencing to this, there is timing to this. When we don't know what the timing is in terms of what we're scheduled to do, when we don't know if we're supposed to be in gym class or English class, or we don't know if we're supposed to be in science class, this can cause a lot of problems because we can be trying to get into the right class at the wrong time. Not knowing or not understanding timing is like moving to, let's just say you decide to relocate to, there's this place here in the United States. There's this city, I was about to say, there's this state here called Vermont. And in Vermont, we have what many people in the United States consider a place that makes some of the absolute best ice cream you can get in the United States. It's a nationwide marketed brand called Ben and Jerry's. Now, Ben and Jerry's has a place where you can go, where you can see how the ice cream is made. You can see, the different flavors and how they put them together, et cetera, et cetera. And so not knowing the right timing is like moving over to Vermont specifically to be close to this ice cream factory and wanting to go there every single day. However, once you get there, some days it's closed because it's seasonal. Maybe they're not open during the off season, during the winter seasons, and then being mad at them, mad at yourself, mad at life, and mad at God because they're only open during vacation season. When you find out the shop's open and close dates for the year, their seasonality, you can stop wasting time going by there every day in the off season. You can stop feeling like raking yourself over hot coals for getting it wrong today. You can stop blaming and being mad at Ben and Jerry's for tricking you into thinking that they might be available, and walking away disappointed. There is no need to cycle in patterns of hurt, letdown, grief, and disappointment when you know the window of time in which there's meant to be open. And union windows are your itinerary for your personal ice cream shop. Even though sometimes they may not have chocolate on hand, i.e., a romantic 3D traditional union, the other flavors of ice cream are pretty darn good and 100% worth the trip when they're actually open. So if you know that you're really sick of being frustrated because it seems like nothing you're doing is working to move your connection forward, you've been in grief and pain around this for an extended period of time, you're struggling around like, okay, well, when is it going to be my turn? You've gone through repeated cycles of giving up and then finding hope only to give back up again. Then I invite you to join me for a 3-hour live workshop called The Timing of Union that I'm going to be doing this coming Sunday. I'm going to put a link to it in the chat now so that you can see how to sign up. It is a one-time workshop. It is live. And it is this particular coming Sunday, and it's going to give you the opportunity to learn when your particular ice cream shop is open. There's collective union windows, but honey, they ain't nothing compared to your personal union windows. There's the link to join in the chat there. Okay, you can also go to my website, K-Moon Astro, and then click timing of union at the bottom of the screen and sign up for the workshop that way. Okay, it's 77 bucks USD. It is an intermediate beginner astrology workshop. So that means it's going to help if you know something about astrology. We're live this Sunday, so it's 5 days from now, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 Pacific, 7 Greenwich Mean Time. If for some reason you can't join this Sunday, you can purchase this and have the recording available for you. Okay. In this workshop, I am going to teach you the astrological cycles of your personal connection. Okay. I'm going to show you the symbols. We're going to go over divine feminine and divine masculine again. We're also going to talk about the symbols for soulmates so that you can see, for those of you who have, third parties in the periphery or the front between you and your counterpart. We're going to see how those people move in and through your divine connection. I'm also going to show you how to predict the seasons of union in your connection that are independent of collective energy, so you know when to expect a pull from the planets. But I'm going to go a step further and teach you how to predict the seasons of separation for yourself, so that you know, okay, my ice cream shop, it's not open yet, so I'm not even going to bother going over there. I'm going to stay over here and do my work until my ice cream shop is open. So you can stop all the pain and the blame and the shame of feeling like you're not doing it right if things aren't coming together. Astrologically, I'm going to show you how to detect challenges from other planets, because sometimes a union window can open, but it may be time for one of those other types of union. And I'm going to show you how to detect that in your chart and in your counterpart's chart again, so that you're not spending time banging your head against the wall looking for something to work that it was just never time for to work in the first place. And lastly, we'll talk about the impact of retrograde Juno and Jupiter, retrograde divine feminine and divine masculine planets. All right, so you can enroll now. Super easy to participate. It's a 3-hour minimum workshop. There is Q&A included. Now, I want to say that some of you can't participate on Sunday. You already know this. Your schedule's already booked. There is a way for you to ask questions in the discussion section of our workshop platform. I'll read those questions and answer them on the live recording. We are going to work with real charts. So you're going to be able to get familiar and very comfortable with what to look for in a chart by the time this is done. So I'll show you where for free you can get your chart and your counterpart's chart without spending a dime if you want to do that. Okay. It's going to be on Zoom. Recording is going to be available. Ultimately, I want you to be able to answer for yourself, where are we in this connection? Okay. Now, there's a lot of stuff. It's a 3-hour workshop. I can't teach you all the things I know, but I'm going to go as deep as I can go in 3 hours to get you to a place of kind of basic understanding, because I know my availability as this union window opens is just not expansive enough to serve as many of you who I know have questions. So this workshop for 77 USD is the cheapest, fastest way I could think of to put the information you need in your hands. And if you want to go deeper, you can always do that with me in a one-on-one session. Now, if you're brand spanking new to astrology, and this chart that you're seeing over here on the right side of your screen is just like too crazy, you don't understand a lick of it, you don't have the basics of just what direction the planets flow in, planetary symbols, like it's just too confusing for you, this is probably not your workshop. Wait. wait until I open up Star School 101 because this workshop has no handouts. It has no slides that are going to be delivered to you. There will be no transcripts. It is just a quick and dirty, like, look, let me connect your brain to my brain and give you as much intel as I can as quickly as possible so that you can run at this and look at your chart. Okay. So if you know you need things like transcripts and handouts and workbooks and things like that, wait for Star School 101. But if you can hang with some basic astrology, then sign up. You're going to have a blast. We're going to get into a lot of great information here. The work at this point is not cultivated to a level that is going to allow you to read union charts for other people. So I haven't done enough work to, perfect the technique. I'm giving you as much as I have up until now to give you to a place where you can read for yourself. Okay. You don't have to have astrology software to participate, and I won't be doing anything around validating. Is it a twin? Is it not a twin? Like I said earlier, I don't go in that direction with it. So if you know you're called to this, sign up now. You can listen to this workshop. It'll be this Sunday. Can't be there live, then I highly recommend that you get the recording, etc. So that's the invitation. I'm going to take some questions now about the workshop if you are curious about the timing of Twin Flame Union workshop. And I'm also going to take some questions about what we talked about today. If you have questions about today's content, I'm going to take some questions about that, probably take about 7 questions. And then from there, we'll sign off. Cara Marie in the chat asks a fabulous question. She says, do we need our counterpart's time of birth to look at things? It is not required. It is helpful. In this workshop, because we're not focusing so much on house systems or rising sign, which the time of birth is required in order to have that, you can create a sunrise chart, and that would be more than enough to get you what you need to work in this workshop. And inside the workshop, there are a set of prerequisite videos that I do require every person who's joining this workshop to watch. They total about 35 minutes, and one of them is how to get your chart. That one's a very brief video. I show you this is how you get a chart if you don't have astrological software, so that you can follow along in the class. All right. Who has questions about today's content? Who has questions about, and Christine asked, do we need to read through the course material beforehand? You do need to watch those prerequisite videos, Christine. If you're already enrolled, you've got access to those videos. And so you do need to watch those videos beforehand. Thank you for the compliment, Rosamond. I appreciate it. I appreciate knowing that you find me an outstanding teacher. It does feel like I've come a long way in the past year. We're working it. Is the timing of Union Workshop different than the content on Star School 201? Tracy, it is Star School 201 condensed and light. So if you have taken 201 and you found it very dense, you found it heavy, you need an opportunity to ask more questions, then you definitely want to sign up for this, because this is going to give you a little bit of added context and color, an opportunity to review the information with me, so that as you're listening, if you got confused in 201, it's a chance to ask some questions, get some clarifications. Okay. TR Moore's tube. If we join this live halfway through, will there be a recording? Yeah, it's just going to stay here on the YouTube channel so that you are able to listen from beginning to end the content about aligning yourself with the union window coming up. Lynette asks, when someone comes into your life with a strong energy that may be a twin energy, but not your twin, How is the best way to utilize that energy connection to keep moving to the next level? That's a very good question. Um, I don't know for sure, Lynette. I think that's going to really depend on the person, the circumstance, where you're at in your connection with your twin, blocks to union that you have uncovered. We talked about, 5 of them today. If you're not working on your blocks to union, then this person can serve as a stepping stone. This person can serve as a distraction. It's really going to depend on how you approach it. So it's going to vary person to person. And my strong recommendation, Lynette, would be to get some coaching to really walk through your situation and get someone to help you see the blind spots as you move through it. Okay. JV asks, I'm glad it was helpful. Mariella, Ritual Kitchen says that Ben and Jerry's analogy was amazing. Good. Yeah, I figured you guys would get that because that place in Vermont where Ben and Jerry's is, it's like a little vacation town. It's really cute, but you can't go there and expect to get the full enchilada all year round. I think there's only certain things available and they're only available at the right time. So JV says, is it possible to have gone through all 4 unions and then separate again to be with other people? Yes, JV, it is. Here's the thing. They don't happen in a sequential order. They are not meant to be steps or stages. And you may have things that you have joint agreement to do elsewhere that does not require or involve the other person. And so you may move into a separation in order to facilitate that next step. Okay. Andrea asks, if you are action oriented and need to learn to receive and let the counterpart step up, it's not ego or pride, I think, according to step 2. It could be that's absolutely correct. The only way to really know that is to really be paying attention to your growth patterns. It's absolutely true. If the twins are in physical union, do they go apart when the window closes? Ooh, Dina, I love this question. Thank you for asking it. No. Oh, I'm so glad you asked this. And this brings me to a very special message that my guides had for you guys in closing. There's the message. As I was going to sleep last night, they were like, get out your pencil. We have something to say. So take this down. And so they had a message for me. I'm so glad you said what you just said because it reminded me to share this with you guys. So I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to share the message. I'm going to take 2 more questions and then I'm going to close out. Okay. So because as aspects of divinity incarnate, we have such high quotients of divine creatorship within us. We have such divine quotients of free will inside of us. We have the capacity to transcend our astrology. And one of my favorite astrological teachers said this, and I absolutely love this. She said, it's really important to understand. It was Candace, and I had her on the channel earlier this year from Beyond the Veil Astrology. She said this a few years ago. She said, it's so important for you to understand that you are not bound by the planets, but you can use the energy. They don't control you. You can transcend the energy to do what you want to. And this is a thing that we have seen in traditional marriages. I want you to think back, like divorce transits for marriages come up all the time with the movements of Saturn crossing over the ruler of the 7th house or through the 7th house or squaring the 7th house or sitting on top of a person's moon. These are very classic transits for separation and divorce inside of astrology. But we have come from a very long line and long legacy of humans on earth who have chosen to stay married, even though they have long outgrown the marriage, even though they have long outgrown the love is no longer there, even though they're called to do other things. People override their astrological energies with free will all the time. And so, given that it can happen in the shadow, that means it can also happen in the light, where it is aligned for two to come together, where it is aligned for two to live and operate as one, where it is aligned for you to come into one of those four types of union with the soul group, union with the divine. Once that activation has hit, it's in. That's it. It's done. It's a wrap. You don't have to come apart. You don't have to move back into a pattern of resistance. The fork in the road is, could you go apart? Sure. Will there be challenges if you stay together? Absolutely. Will the lessons be worth it? 100%. So that's the invitation and the opportunity. We get to choose what we want to do with the energy when we know that it's coming. And one of the things that this workshop will do when we talk about these seasons of separation in this workshop on Sunday, we're going to talk about specifically what the lessons are in those, and what the lessons are in the challenges to union from other planets, so that you understand what you're working with. When the divine counterparts move out of harmonious energy, or if there's a challenge to union, you can choose what octave you want to work with that energy on. It doesn't always have to be straight up, wah, wah, now we have to go into separation. Okay. Very good question. Okay, let me give this message to you guys from my team. They had this message for you as I was going to sleep last night. I'll take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. Here's what they had to say. And here is the link one more time if you are feeling really called to enroll in the Timing of Union workshop. Let me give you this message from my team here next. All right. We will always make a way for twins to come together, as long as it's for the highest good of all involved. But you are not puppets. You are sovereign beings. And the final fulfillment of that vision cannot be manifested without your full participation and cooperation, and that of your counterparts. So when you receive messages about what you need to do, that's us talking to you, guiding you, and to stay on track with the timeline of your highest possible outcome. All we ask of you is to just do it. Don't delay. Don't make excuses or find reasons for staying where you are. We know that change in the density realms is never, ever easy. Even good changes require overcoming the comfort and familiarity of inertia. Some of you are in leases, mortgages, relationships, marriages, jobs, careers, neighborhoods, poor health and behavior patterns long past their expiration date. But we are here to support you. We can't and won't force you into your next step. So when you're shown it's time to move, take heart that you're being shown this for a reason, and that what's in front of you will always be better than what you have, always. But the planets, us, we cannot force sovereign beings to go against their own free will choice to stay comfortable in their discomfort. We cannot want this more for you than you want it for yourself. That was the message. That was what they wanted me to share with you. All right. So hopefully that's helpful for some of you out there. Let's go ahead. I'm going to take 2 final questions. I'm going to see if I can find questions that really help the most people. One question about the class, Veronica Lynn. I leave the knowing up to you, Veronica. You will find that the information is useful in one of 2 ways. It either helps you understand what's happening in your connection if it is a twin connection from an astrological perspective. And if you don't know, as you're charting what's happening and paying attention to timing over time, the astrology can be assistive in revealing to you when it's not a twin connection. Okay. Maggie says, can't make it on Sunday. You get the recording if you can't make it on Sunday, hon. Okay. All right. All right. So those are the 2 questions. Let me see. P asked a really good question. A soulmate is predicted to come into my life soon, according to astrology. If I'm not open to a romantic relationship with someone that is not my twin, does that mean that a soulmate wouldn't enter? No, that means you get to deal with that person when they come along in whatever way you see fit. And that soul, just because a soulmate comes in, that doesn't make them a romantic partner. Sometimes soulmates come in and they're here to do other kinds of work with us. All right. All right. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything crazy. Gonna link the therapists for you guys. All right. Here we go. All right, guys. I thank you so very much for being here, for liking, subscribing, and sharing. Okay. For those of you who got something out of this, for something that resonated, I just ask that you go ahead and hit that like button. If you're new around here, it's your first time listening to something from me and you got value out of this in some way, please subscribe. I'm here at the new and full moon. And anytime my guides are like nudging me, like, hey, we got a message, drop this, share this, I will do that for you. So there are channeled messages and a channeled messages list here on the channel. And everything else that I said would be linked below is about to be linked below.